Hey everyone, Saber here. Just wanted to go through my remix project that I did for the World Outside, because some people were asking me about how I did things, and I thought this would be a fun way to kind of, show what was going on in my brain in that crazy time a couple of days before the deadline there. So let's jump into it. Alright, so starting from the beginning, in the intro there is this main melody chop. It sounds like this. I made this by taking Alina's acapella and just chopping it up, finding some parts, some vowel sounds, different phrases that I really like the sound of, and I pieced those together, and then that sounds like this without effects. And the first thing I did was pass it through some little alter boy, just get it down 12 semitones in pitch, a little bit down in formant as well. A little bit of high cut. This Effectrix is doing the tape stop. Some more tonal EQ, taking out some of these mids here just because they were taking up a lot of space. And then this is just a high pass, low pass filter that I'm using to do some automation. So this is kind of like the main hook of the intro, and it starts here and pretty much plays throughout the entire song as just a supporting element in all the sections. Next is these synth chords. Kind of like an 80s retro vibe to them. This is just an Anna 2 preset. Yeah, it's called 80s Love Scene, so yeah, makes sense. And that's pretty much everything that's going on here in the immediate intro, just double checking. A couple other elements here, got a little bit of a effect sound. It's like an anime style riser that I made for a pack that a friend and I did. And then this cute little like plinky lead thing that's just playing this kind of melody. This is just from Expand 2. It's the bubbling harp from the percussive section. And that kind of takes us right into this first verse. This is where the main vocal comes in. Won't be talking too much about the lead vocals in this particular video. I want to save that for potentially another video where I maybe do a breakdown of how I went into like recording my vocals and processing them for this particular project, so definitely stay tuned for that. But immediately going into this section where we have this noise downfall, just like a super subtle element just to kind of tie it from this riser into a tension release in this section. Of course, the chop is continuing, and this is kind of where this element first comes in. This is like the main kind of like future bass adjacent kind of chord sound, just using Serum 2 for this. Bunch of voices on saw here. A little bit of FM. I've been liking this doing FM from B, but with applying a high pass filter to the oscillator that's doing the FMing, just kind of gives a unique texture. And then a little bit of sign shaping distortion just to kind of squarify this a tiny bit, give it kind of that square wave flavor. Other than that, just yeah, regular little LFO on the low pass filter, and then nothing crazy going on in the effects, just a multi-band compressor, so kind of like an OTT kind of vibe on that. And then of course the 80s chords are also continuing to play essentially through the entire song. And then we have this guy coming in as well. Also Serum 2 sound. This is just super simple saw wave, white noise, distort them together, kind of like a tube saw thing. And I'm using the blur on the new Bode effects insert here in Serum 2 to kind of get this width on it. So you can hear how that really opens it up. This is a really cool like stereo widening utility that I've kind of been using a lot since Serum 2 came out. So that's kind of serving as the low end support for this section of the track. All right, we can talk about the drums then for the first chorus. So these are the drums. This is the drum part just alone. So a couple things going on here, as you can see. We got the kick itself. This is made up of a couple different layers. I have this main sample. This was the original kick that I started out with, but I felt that this didn't really have the low end that I was looking for, so I went and I found a different sample. I'm handling that. And this is kind of serving as the main low-end supplier. And then also a good buddy of mine, Lightshard, shout out Lightshard, sent me this transient layer for the kick. This is just a super small sound, but it really helps beef up that transient. So I'll play it without it. And then with. Super subtle, but it kind of brings in that like between 1K and 2K energy in the transient that really helps this kick knock. Just a little tom fill here. This just kind of plays all the time, just as like a syncopated rhythmic element that kind of helps fill things out. And then the snare. Snare is made up of 2 layers. Got this one here, which is just more like a clap kind of thing. And then the super doofy, big fundamental kind of snare with a big scoop in it for good measure, of course. And this is being sent parallel to this reverb send. Big trick here is that I have a transient shaper on the reverb stem before the reverb, and what this is doing is when that snare is hitting, it's taking out that transient so that the reverb only responds to the body and the tail of the snare, and it doesn't get excited by that transient, so you don't get this kind of like nasty reverb sound that you might get otherwise. So this is without it, and then with it. So you can really hear how that softens up that attack and just helps everything layer more nicely. And then some hat stuff. This is just a standard hat. Got a little bit of a variation on one of these samples. You can kind of hear it goes da 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 da. Just gives it a little bit more variety. What you'll notice on all these hats is they have the precedence effect. Really, really useful effect to look into on your own time. I won't spend too much time explaining it here, but it basically helps panned elements feel like they're present on both sides of your head instead of just one. And it's a really nice, like, psychoacoustic kind of effect. Shaker on the right here. And then my beloved Skrillex crash, just on the downbeat. And then a little bit of open hi-hat action. So that is pretty much the entire drum part for the chorus here. Play it one more time. Only other thing that's going on here of interest is I'm using the Wolf compressor, Good Hurts My Beloved, just doing some parallel compression, have the attack turned up. If I were to turn this up all the way, you can hear what the fully compressed signal sounds like. So this is just kind of giving it a nice squeeze, and then I'm mixing it in just a little bit. Also, something to note about the Wolf compressor is that even if you're doing parallel compression, it kind of does a very gentle roll-off on the high end, so it can sometimes help make those really harsh high-end elements sound a little bit more natural. So I also like it for that. All right, what else is new? I guess a very similar concept here for the Mandolina chop. I know I said I wouldn't talk about vocals too much, but just going to touch on this a little bit. So very similar concept to the main melody chop that I showed in the intro. Just found some chops, vowels, different words that I really like the sound of, and then kind of pieced those together in a way that made sense to my brain. And just doing a little bit of extra auto-tuning on here, a little bit of OTT, a little bit of Saturn saturation just to thicken it up a little bit, and then a little bit of tone control. This is just like an EQ. Don't get confused by what's going on here. I'm using it for the air feature because it has a really nice way of adding some of that really, really high frequency information and just kind of fills out those upper harmonics really nicely. Kind of similar to what you can do with something like Slate Digital's Fresh Air, but they kind of serve a bit of a different purpose. I think I have Fresh Air on some other stuff in this project as well, so I definitely use both of them, sometimes interchangeably, sometimes for a specific reason. All right. So this is just another noise element. Main chop is continuing, and then there are just some slightly altered versions of the elements that I've already showed playing in this section. Of course, I'm bringing in the sub. Excuse the audio glitches. My system is struggling with this project. I have some expensive processing going on some of the buses. This is just super, super simple. Sine wave, a little bit of added harmonic. So you can kind of hear as I'm adding additional harmonics there, it is going to make that sub more present on smaller speakers like phones and such, but you're also losing that low fundamental. So there's definitely a balance there where you're still able to hear the sub on smaller speakers, but also it's still hitting really well in like on like a big system or like in your car and stuff. So, and then also just a little bit of noise layered on there. And then I'm adding this glass texture. This is just a like a glass breaking sample in a granular thing in Faceplant, and then it's just high passed. And this is just kind of giving this like super like washy texture to the top of the chords that I think layers really nice. It just kind of fills out that background space. The main difference here between the future chords in the intro and the chorus is that I have taken off a lot of that high-end filtering that I had going on, really opened this up. I've added an additional square wave oscillator, which isn't actually used in this chorus, but is used in the second chorus just to kind of give it a bit of a different energy in that section. We also got this little guy. This is just another element from Expand 2. This is just, what is this, high bells. Just a little bit of a accent, ear candy, little melody thing. And now we'll move on to verse 2. So verse 2 is where my vocal comes in. A little bit of a different drum kit for this section. Still using this kick with the click baked in, but I'm adding this super wide clap snare that just kind of plays like almost behind your head kind of sensation for this section, which I think is cool. And then bringing in the shaker as well. Got this little guy. Just like a super simple saw wave with some pitch automation. Incredibly simple sound, a little bit of delay. Just as a bit of ear candy. And yeah, I mean, I think that's honestly pretty much it. That's like all the elements. I guess the only thing left is the lead. So the biggest thing on the lead is it's just a saw wave with some sync. Actually, maybe it's not a saw wave. Maybe it's this other mysterious wave on position 4 in here. Yeah, this guy. This kind of like almost a square, but it's like halfway between a square and a saw wave for the base of the sound. And then just pink noise. I'm just FMing from the noise. Noise FM is a really cool way to give lead elements this really gritty texture. You can hear if I turn that off. Yeah, just really kind of brings that grit to the sound. Just doing some always portamento on this sound so that the notes are kind of naturally bending between each other. And then I have some pitch bend automation, just kind of to add some accents to the different notes. Also vibrato and some tremolo just to tie everything together. Also using this Effectrix looper, which is super subtle in this section. It really makes a bigger difference on the Alina chop in this section because that also has the Effectrix on it. And that's what's kind of giving it like the stuttery effect.
Thank you for waiting, thank you for waiting, for waiting, for waiting, for waiting for me. Thank you for...
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, appreciate you being here. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.